Last month, a court in Switzerland sharply reprimanded FINMA, which is that country's financial sector regulator, for the manner in which it handled the insolvency and restructuring of Credit Suisse in 2023. Now, the court struck down the decision of FINMA to wipe out the bondholders of Credit Suisse without touching the equity shareholders. To be sure, these are no regular bonds. These bonds are something known as additional tier bonds, which are issued by most banks around the world as additional capital buffer in addition to their equity shares. Now, this ruling has some implications for all of us in India because in 2020, the Reserve Bank of India took a similar decision to wipe out the holders of additional tier bonds of Yes Bank without touching its equity shareholders. Today, I will dive into the implications of this ruling for all of us in India. The story begins in 2019 when it was discovered that Yes Bank suffered from some massive unrecognized losses and its financial soundness was in jeopardy. Like in many other cases, the Reserve Bank of India got several other banks to rescue Yes Bank by putting in additional capital. So, for example, it got HDFC, ICICI, State Bank of India, and so on to put in additional capital in Yes Bank. Now, in this process, Reserve Bank of India wiped out the bondholders of Yes Bank without touching the equity shareholders. That is, the rights of bondholders were completely extinguished and the equity shareholders were left largely untouched, except the dilution that they would have suffered because of these new equity shareholders who came in as part of the rescue. This is no small matter because actually these bonds were held by retail bondholders through mutual funds. It was held by non-retail bondholders such as HNIs, and it was held by large corporates in India. The aggregate value of these bonds were about 8,400 crores. Now, this completely upends the traditional hierarchy of capital instruments in a company. It is commonly understood that when a company suffers losses, whether that company is a manufacturing company or a bank or some other sort of a company, the first absorbers of the losses are the equity shareholders, followed by the bondholders. Why is this the case? Because equity shareholders have almost no ceiling on the returns that they make on the capital invested by them, whereas bondholders' returns are capped by the interest on the bond and the capital value of the bonds. So the risk-reward ratio of equity shareholders is very different from that of bondholders, because of which equity shareholders end up becoming the first absorbers of losses in a company, followed by the others. Now, because this was an extraordinary decision, to nobody's surprise, the bondholders appealed to the Bombay High Court against the RBI's decision to wipe them out. The Bombay High Court held in favor of the bondholders in 2023, and the Reserve Bank of India and Yes Bank in its new avatar appealed to the Supreme Court against the judgment of the Bombay High Court. The case is pending before the Supreme Court since 2023. This ruling of the Swiss court of last month has implications for three specific constituencies in India. First, it reminds the Supreme Court of India that a case of large commercial proportion, 8,400 crores to be precise, has been pending before it since 2023. The case has had a total of 15 hearings, and the trajectory of these hearings seems to be completely unpredictable. Its first hearing was held in 2023, and then its next hearing was held in Jan 2025. So, in short, there were no hearings for close to 2 years in this case. When it was heard in Feb 2025, the case was transferred to another bench on the basis that this case required complex commercial knowledge and so on. And the bench to which it was transferred, one of the judges retired within a month of such transfer. The case has had another 14 hearings in 2025. On 8 of these occasions, the case was not heard at all. On the remaining 6, the case did not make much progress. The Swiss court ruling, on the other hand, emphasizes the importance of speed and predictability in resolving commercial cases of significant proportions. The second implication that it has is for the Reserve Bank of India. This ruling of the Swiss court and the RBI's decision to upend the traditional hierarchy in corporate of Yes Bank's capital instruments behooves us to question what is the extent of power that regulators in India have when resolving financial institutions such as bank. such as banks. What can they do? What cannot they do? What are the circumstances in which they can exercise extraordinary powers versus not? What are the processes that they need to follow to be able to exercise such extraordinary powers, and so on? And the third implication is obviously for the policymakers in India in a broader sense. India got the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in 2016, and that for the first time laid down a streamlined process for resolving insolvencies in India. However, the law does not apply to banks and financial institutions, primarily because the resolution of banks and large financial institutions requires speed, involves complex commercial questions, a heterogeneous, large body of creditors, and is simply not amenable to a creditors' committee process of the kind that IBC envisages. So, this reminds me of a bill that was tabled before the Parliament in 2018 called the Financial Resolution and Deposit Insurance Bill that laid down a process that regulators would follow in dealing with the rescues and restructuring of financial institutions and banks. The bill was eventually withdrawn, with the consequence that today India lacks the single most important element that is imperative for the resolution of any bank or large financial institution in India, and that is the imperative of predictability and certainty. Thank you.